In the past few years, new evidence has come to light that shows that humans have been occupying North America for far longer than we once thought. The discovery of human occupation made in Oregon, dating back to more than 18,250 years ago.
History just blinked, because Oregon may have rewritten the story of humanity. For generations, historians believed they knew when humans first arrived in the Americas. But buried beneath Oregon's ancient landscape, archaeologists have uncovered evidence that tells a far older story, one that pushes human settlement back nearly 20,000 years. If confirmed, this discovery doesn't just adjust the timeline. It forces us to rethink everything we know about early human migration, survival, and ingenuity. Watch closely, because this discovery rewrites where we come from. The discovery that changed everything. In the remote wilderness of southeastern Oregon, near the small town of Riley, there's a place that doesn't look like much at first glance. It's a shallow rock overhang in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by sagebrush and vast open desert. But this unassuming spot, called Rimrock Draw Rock Shelter, has become one of the most important archaeological sites in North America. What researchers found here has shaken the foundations of what we believed about early human history on this continent. Since 2011, archaeologist Patrick O'Grady from the University of Oregon has been working at this site in partnership with the Bureau of Land Management. Year after year, his team of students and researchers carefully dug through layers of ancient sediment, hoping to find clues about the people who once called this place home. The site is essentially an open-air shelter, meaning early inhabitants used the shallow overhang for protection from rain, wind, and the harsh desert sun. A permanent stream once flowed right next to this shelter, making it an ideal camping spot for ancient hunters and gatherers. The team knew they were dealing with something old, but they had no idea just how old. As they dug deeper into the earth, they kept finding fascinating artifacts and animal bones. Each discovery hinted at a story thousands of years in the making. The deeper they went, the more excited they became. They were uncovering evidence of human life from a time when the world looked completely different. What makes this site so special is not just its age, but the remarkable preservation of the evidence. The natural layering of sediments, combined with volcanic ash from ancient eruptions, created a perfect time capsule. Everything was sealed and protected for millennia, waiting for someone to uncover its secrets. And the secrets they found would challenge nearly a century of scientific thinking about how and when humans first arrived in the Americas. The shocking findings. In 2012, O'Grady's team made a discovery that made them stop and stare. They found fragments of camel teeth buried beneath a thick layer of volcanic ash. Yes, you read that right. Camel teeth. These weren't modern camels, but an extinct species called camelops that roamed North America during the Ice Age. The volcanic ash covering these teeth came from an eruption of Mount St. Helens that scientists had already dated to more than 15,000 years ago. This meant the camel teeth had to be even older than that. But the real excitement came when they also discovered beautifully crafted stone tools at the site. The team uncovered 2 orange agate scrapers, tools that ancient people would have used for processing animal hides and meat. One of these scrapers, found in 2012, still had preserved animal blood on it. When scientists tested this blood residue, they identified it as coming from Bison antiquus, an extinct ancestor of modern buffalo. This bison was massive, much larger than the buffalo we see today, and it roamed the Americas during the Pleistocene epoch. The second scraper, discovered in 2015, was buried even deeper in the ash layers. Based on the position of these tools in the ground, researchers knew they had to be incredibly old. The natural layering of the sediments showed that these scrapers were older than both the volcanic ash and the camel teeth found above them. This meant humans were making and using sophisticated tools at this site before the Mount St. Helens eruption 15,000 years ago. Additional discoveries included obsidian flakes, which are the waste chips left behind when ancient people made stone tools. These flakes tell us that people were actually making and repairing their tools right here at the shelter. The site also contained burned seeds and charcoal from ancient cooking fires, giving us a glimpse into the daily lives of these early Americans. They cooked their food here, crafted their tools here, and took shelter from the elements in this very spot. The dating breakthrough. The big question remained, exactly how old was this site? To answer this, O'Grady partnered with two leading scientists who specialize in radiocarbon dating. Dr. Thomas W. Stafford Jr. and Dr. John Southen ran multiple tests on the camel and bison tooth enamel. The first round of testing happened in 2018, and then they repeated the analysis in 2023 to confirm their results. When the numbers came back, everyone involved was stunned. The radiocarbon dating revealed that the camel tooth enamel was 18,250 years old. That's nearly 20,000 years ago. To put this in perspective, this was during the height of the last ice age, when massive glaciers covered much of North America. Woolly mammoths, giant ground sloths, and saber-toothed cats still roamed the land. The world was a completely different place, and yet humans were here, living and thriving in what is now Oregon. What made these results even more reliable was their consistency. The scientists ran multiple tests on different samples, and the dates kept coming back in the same range. As Patrick O'Grady explained, it wasn't just about getting such old dates, it was about getting consistent results. This consistency gave researchers confidence that the dates were accurate and not some kind of contamination or error. The stone tools found below the dated animal remains had to be even older than 18,250 years. Think about that for a moment. Humans were crafting sophisticated tools in Oregon potentially 19,000 or even 20,000 years ago. This pushes back the timeline of human presence in North America by thousands of years, compared to what scientists believed just a few decades ago. It's a complete game changer for our understanding of human history on this continent. Why this matters and other sites challenging old theories. For much of the 20th century, scientists accepted the Clovis first theory, which held that the first people in the Americas were the Clovis culture, identified by distinctive spear points found in New Mexico in the 1930s. According to this model, humans crossed from Siberia into Alaska over the Beringia land bridge around 13,000 years ago and moved south through an ice-free corridor between glaciers. This idea became textbook truth, and claims of earlier human presence were often dismissed outright. That certainty has now collapsed. Discoveries at Rimrock Draw Rock Shelter and other sites have provided overwhelming evidence that humans lived in the Americas thousands of years before the Clovis culture appeared. Heather Ulrich of the Bureau of Land Management described Rimrock Draw as an especially exciting breakthrough, noting that while earlier work suggested human occupation in Oregon around 14,000 years ago, this site may push the timeline back even further, potentially making it the oldest known site in North America. The implications for understanding migration, adaptation, and survival are profound. Rimrock Draw is part of a broader pattern reshaping American prehistory. Sites like Cooper's Ferry in Idaho, dating to more than 16,000 years ago, suggest migration along rivers from the Pacific coast, while Oregon's Paisley Caves revealed 14,500-year-old human DNA and non-Clovis tools. Farther south, Monteverde in Chile shows humans present at least 14,500 years ago, implying an even earlier entry into the Americas, and a far more complex human story than once believed. The Kelp Highway Theory. If the ice-free corridor wasn't the route early humans took to reach the Americas, then how did they get here? Many scientists now favor what's called the Kelp Highway Theory, also known as the Pacific Coastal Migration Route. This theory proposes that instead of walking through the middle of the continent, early Americans traveled down the Pacific coast by boat. The theory gets its name from kelp forests, those underwater jungles of seaweed that grow along coastlines. These kelp forests are incredibly rich ecosystems, teeming with fish, sea otters, seals, shellfish, and seabirds. People who knew how to navigate coastal waters and harvest marine resources could have followed these kelp highways from Asia, along the coast of Alaska, and down to what is now Washington, Oregon, and California. The kelp highway theory makes a lot of sense when you look at the geography. During the last ice age, sea levels were much lower because so much water was locked up in glaciers. This exposed coastal areas that are now underwater. Early people could have island hopped along the coast, stopping at beaches and river mouths to hunt, fish, and gather food. They could have moved south relatively quickly, without ever having to deal with the massive inland glaciers. The problem with proving this theory is that most of the evidence is now underwater. When the Ice Age ended and glaciers melted, sea levels rose dramatically, flooding the ancient coastlines where these early people would have lived. Their campsites, tools, and garbage dumps are now buried under meters of seawater and ocean sediment. This makes them incredibly difficult for archaeologists to find and study. However, sites like Rimrock Draw, located inland but potentially settled by people who originally came from the coast, provide indirect support for this coastal migration theory. What was life like for the people who lived at Rimrock Draw 18,000 years ago? The evidence suggests they were highly skilled hunters, capable of taking down enormous animals. Bison blood found on stone scrapers shows they hunted bison antiquus, creatures that could weigh more than 3,000 pounds. Hunting animals of that size required planning, cooperation, and advanced techniques passed down through generations. The discovery of camel teeth reveals that camelops, the Ice Age camel, also lived in the region. These animals were similar in size to modern camels and thrived in cooler Pleistocene climates. The presence of both camels and bison suggests the area supported rich grazing lands with abundant vegetation, creating an ecosystem where large herbivores and human hunters could flourish. The landscape itself was very different from today. Instead of high desert scrub, the area likely featured grasslands and diverse plant life, with a permanent stream flowing beside the rock shelter. The climate was cooler and wetter, and harsh Ice Age winters made the shelter invaluable. Stone tools made from agate and obsidian show remarkable craftsmanship, proving these people had the technology and knowledge needed to survive and thrive. One of the most powerful aspects of the Rimrock Draw discovery is how it validates indigenous oral histories long dismissed by mainstream science. David Lewis, an anthropology professor at Oregon State University, has emphasized that many tribal nations in the region tell stories of witnessing major geological events dating between 18,000 and 15,000 years ago. These accounts were preserved through oral tradition long before archaeology offered scientific explanations. Many of those stories describe catastrophic floods that closely match evidence of the Missoula floods, when collapsing ice dams unleashed immense torrents across the Pacific Northwest. Indigenous histories recount landscapes being torn apart and reshaped, a striking parallel to what geologists now know about how these floods carved channels and transformed the region. Oral traditions also speak of encounters with giant or monstrous animals, once dismissed as myth. Today, archaeology confirms that early indigenous ancestors lived alongside megafauna, such as mammoths, giant bison, camels, ground sloths, and dire wolves. What were once considered legends now appear to be cultural memories of real encounters. Rimrock Draw underscores a vital lesson. Indigenous knowledge preserves deep historical truth, and its timelines, once ignored, are increasingly being confirmed by scientific evidence. The tools and technology. Let's take a closer look at the stone tools found at Rimrock Draw because they tell us so much about the people who made them. The two orange agate scrapers are particularly impressive. Agate is a type of chalcedony, a cryptocrystalline form of quartz. It's harder than steel and can be shaped into edges sharper than modern surgical scalpels. The people who made these scrapers knew exactly what they were doing. Creating a stone tool like this requires incredible skill and knowledge. The toolmaker had to understand the properties of the stone, how it would fracture when struck, which angles would produce the best flakes, and how to control the force of each blow. They used a technique called pressure flaking, where they carefully pressed against the edge of the stone to remove tiny flakes and create a sharp, even edge. This isn't something you can do on your first try. It takes years of practice and learning from experienced craftspeople. The fact that one scraper still had blood residue on it after nearly 20,000 years is remarkable. This preservation happened because the scraper was quickly buried by sediment and volcanic ash, protecting it from weathering and decay. The blood residue has allowed scientists to identify exactly which animal the tool was used on bison antiquus. This gives us a direct connection to a moment in time when someone used this very tool to process meat or clean a hide from a freshly killed bison. The obsidian flakes scattered around the site show that toolmaking was an ongoing activity here. When you make a stone tool by chipping away flakes, you create a lot of waste material. The presence of this debitage, as archaeologists call it, shows that people were sitting at this shelter, working on their tools, getting ready for hunts or repairing equipment that had broken. It's a glimpse into the everyday activities of Ice Age life. These weren't random people passing through. This was a place they returned to regularly, a known shelter where they could rest, make tools, and plan their next moves. What makes the Rimrock Draw discovery especially credible is the rigorous science behind it. Patrick O'Grady and his team followed strict archaeological protocols, carefully documenting every artifact, its precise location, depth, and surrounding context. This level of precision is essential for accurately determining age and meaning, and it rules out the kind of speculation that often undermines controversial discoveries. The work itself was not rushed. Since 2011, the University of Oregon and the Bureau of Land Management have maintained a long-term partnership at the site. Over more than a decade, archaeological field schools returned year after year, training students while methodically uncovering evidence. This slow, systematic approach allowed researchers to build a reliable record rather than chasing quick conclusions. Equally important were the multiple layers of verification. Radiocarbon dating was conducted and repeated by leading experts, including Thomas W. Stafford Jr. and John Southan, producing consistent results across different tests and years. Stratigraphy further supported the findings, with artifacts found beneath Mount St. Helens volcanic ash, a known time marker. As Chelsea Rose of Southern Oregon University noted, this blend of careful fieldwork, advanced dating, and institutional collaboration makes Rimrock Draw a model of trustworthy archaeology. Findings at Rimrock Draw Rock Shelter have transformed the understanding of the peopling of the Americas. Evidence shows humans lived in Oregon 18,250 years ago, using stone tools alongside Ice Age animals. Along with pre-Clovis sites, this overturns Clovis first. Research by Patrick O'Grady, the Bureau of Land Management, and Indigenous Histories highlights careful archaeology and migration stories. What other secrets might be buried beneath our feet, waiting to be discovered? Share your thoughts in the comments below.